All right, let's start the meeting. 5:33. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And would the clerk commence with the roll call?
Councilmember Kluwer? Here. Councilmember Collings?
Here.
Councilmember Stearns?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Redmond?
Here.
Mayor Stackcliffe?
Here. Okay, I don't have my agendas handy, so the next piece, public comments. Yeah, Sora. Okay, so we have a special presentation from Sora today, and they now have the floor. Go ahead, folks. Thanks, John. Nah, I should be able to get it up and going, but if I do, I'll let you know.
I'm recovering, I'm not sick, and I have a hoarse voice, so I apologize for that. So my name is Justy Hansen. I'm the director of Siskiyou Outdoor Recreation Alliance, and we are here to talk about the Siskiyou Stewardship Corps, which is a program that you folks have funded the last couple of years, provided funding and support for. So I wanted to just provide an update on last year's program, and then we'll provide some updates on this year's program. And then to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for supporting the Stewardship Corps. It provided unrestricted funding for us to be able to spend time on expanding the program. So last year, we spent a bulk of our time actually working with the Rec and Park District, doing stewardship education, and then also stewardship work at the city park, which was really fun. Bryson Schrader, who is the director, he was unable to make it, did a bulk of the work there. We were able to expand the program through a partnership with Bike Shasta and the Mount Shasta Trail Association. Excuse me. And that has allowed us to now kind of dive into doing trail work and maintenance on the Gateway Trail system. So we have a partnership now with the U.S. Forest Service, the Mount Shasta Trail Association, and Bike Shasta. So the Trail Association, as you know, has kind of taken the lead with the Forest Service on developing those gateway trails. And now there's a huge need for maintenance, and that's not something that the Trail Association can continue to do just on their own. And then Bike Shasta is partnering with us so that we can go out and do more trail maintenance work. So that's sort of like an expansion of the program. So in addition to that, I'm not sure if you folks are aware, but we, a couple of years ago, were awarded a grant from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy to do an outdoor recreation and trails study and plan. And part of that plan includes a lot of community feedback. So a couple of weeks ago, in the first week of May, we did four community workshops, one in McLeod, one in Dunsmuir, one in Mount Shasta, and one in Weed. And we had an amazing turnout. So the purpose of those workshops was to give the community the opportunity to provide feedback on what their concerns were around recreation or are, and what are some of the elements that they would like to see move forward in terms of recreation. And across the board, the main theme through all of those workshops was the community wants to see our recreation infrastructure maintained and maintained well. So to us, that was just a sign that there is room for growth with the Stewardship Corps. And we have a lot of trail to maintain here. So we also did, as a part of the community workshops, we did a stakeholder meeting, and we met with the city, we met with Jeff, the city planner, and then the U.S. Forest Service, some other organizational leaders from the community. And again, the same theme came up was, yes, we're excited about developing more recreation areas, and we need to maintain and steward these areas. What else? So the planning is going to be we're going to be working on a draft of the plan this summer based on the feedback that we got from the community workshops, and then we'll be getting recommendations in the fall. So we'll also be kind of using that community feedback to kind of help direct the development of the stewardship core as well. And I'm not sure if you all have received the email with the survey for the planning project, the rec planning project. If not, maybe I could send it out to someone and then you all could have access to that survey. So it's just getting feedback and ideas about recreation to go into the plan. So I'll follow up with you on that. And then another piece I wanted to just mention really quick is that as part of the planning project, we got a lot of feedback from community members about what kind of projects they would like to see funded and implemented. And there are community members who are interested in moving forward and taking a lead on some of those projects, but they don't have the skill sets to do so. So one thing we're thinking about is raising funds and going after some grant funding to provide TA for community members who would like to work on a particular infrastructure project. So for example, there's a group who is interested in looking at raising some funding to help support the county in perhaps buying a new plow so that we can have the Everett and Castle Lake roads plowed consistently like they used to in the wintertime, because we know that having those roads open contribute to our winter local economy. So yeah, so that's kind of it. We're growing with the Stewardship Corps, and your support really helped us with that unrestricted funding to just go out and develop those relationships and do new partnerships and contracts and go out and try to find grant funding to grow that program. So now we're going to talk about what's happening this year, and I'm going to hand it over to Renee.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Renee Casterline. Used to be with Siskiyou Land Trust. I've been with SORA now for a little bit over a year. And last fall, I was fortunate enough to get to spend a bunch of time on the ground with the stewardship program. And last fall is really the time that we launched working with the Trail Association and Bike Shasta to put on volunteer events. The Trail Association's done that for a long, long time, and they're very good at it. But they are focused on the Gateway 2 build right now, and so they needed some assistance in being able to put those together. And that's something that we're able to continue this year. And in fact, on Saturday, we have a work day that I'm happy to tell you is going to start down at the Pioneer Trailhead on the east side Roseburg property of the cities. So we're super excited about that. There's a big Forest Service trailhead sign in. There are about 200 feet of trail built from the trailhead going uphill. And then SORA has a grant from the State Parks Department through the Regional Parks Program that is mostly centered around the Nordic Center, but also includes 5 miles of the Gateway 2 build out to assist the work that the Trail Association has been doing and the funding that they've been bringing in. So in that project that we have, that is the Nordic Center and Trails project, so far we have put in a double vault toilet up at the Nordic Center. It was there for this past winter, which is a great improvement over the vault toilets, and a partnership between SORA and the Trail Association will maintain that vault toilet. It's outside of the capacity of the Forest Service at this time. So we're finding new ways to get things done, like keeping the toilets pumped and the rooms clean. So that's a new piece up at the Nordic Center. Outside of that grant, we also bought the new groomer for the Nordic Center this year. So a lot happened at the Nordic Center over the winter, and under that RPP grant, what we'll be working on through the summer is to bring a contractor on who will work on building the new lodge, which is a mobile unit, and we have some big ideas for what it might do in the summer months. So we're excited about that. And as for the Stewardship Corps and our work this year, we have a big commitment with both the Trail Association and Bike Shasta to put on trail work days with some regularity and some good frequency until there's not enough moisture in the soil and we can't work anymore, and then we'll pick it up in the fall again. And that really ties into what we heard from people at the community meetings as part of the South Siskiyou Sustainable Recreation Planning Project, was that they want to feel confident that maintenance is occurring. So one of the things that we're doing is getting more trail days on the ground in our partnership with the MSTA and Bike Shasta. But SORA also sees, for the direction of the organization, that this is an important place for us to invest in the future of our community. You know, the Gateway system will be close to 50 miles when Gateway 2 build-out is done. And then we will turn our eyes towards the west side, hopefully, to really diversify the trail and recreation options that we have in the summer. So that's what we have going on right now. Should any of you have interest in trail work days, you can sign up on the SORA website to get our newsletter and just be aware of what's going on. But we're really excited. This one on Saturday when we kick it off, we're going to have lunch at Shasta East Park with a new food truck coming into town. And then we'll work with Shasta Gravity. They're going to provide some free shuttle rides that day. So we're really working on bringing together a diverse group of people who will help and be involved in the stewardship of the recreation resources that we have right now. And with that.
Do you want to mention the Single Track Summit?
So also in early May, Bryson and I attended the Single Track Summit, which is a gathering of trail building organizations in Northern California. This year was in Weaverville, and that was its third year. We're super excited that it looks like we're going to host it here in Mount Shasta next year, which really means bringing a diverse group of organizations from around the state. While the trail building organizations are focused in Northern California, there are advocacy organizations and even trail building organizations out of the Bay Area. Realize I don't think that they're Northern California. So they came up for the Single Track Summit as well. So we're really excited. We had there were 50 or 60 people at the presentation day for the Single Track Summit, and we also were there for the Trail Work Day. So we got to work with their local crews over there in Weaverville. That was really great, and we're really excited to bring it here next spring. So we'll be sure that you guys know that that's happening, but it really just feels like recreation is growing for us. Particularly, there's a lot of emphasis on mountain biking right now, and we're seeing a lot of interest here and working to be able to respond to that, both through our culture that we create in our resident population around stewardship, and also how we get visitors to think about recreation and the stewarding of those resources when they come to visit. And now I think I'm handing it back to Justin.
Thanks, Renee.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank you all again for having us here and for supporting our programs. And I just wanted to close with a brief statement about recreation. And, you know, we got this grant for expanding the Nordic Center, and now we're doing this recreation plan and expanding the Stewardship Corps. And I'm realizing more and more that recreation is more about just having fun and getting outside. And the more we expand our programs, I see how recreation ties into so many of the elements of vibrant communities. That, you know, recreation can be how people socialize. It's how we stay healthy, so it impacts community health. And we all know that the Nordic Center and our events like Grindero and the ski park, all those recreation, all that infrastructure attracts people to our area that support our local economy. And recreation intersects with stewardship. It intersects with with education. Last year we had 800 students up at the Nordic Center. We were completely packed. We probably could have had schools up there 5 days a week. It's pretty incredible. So it touches on many elements of our community, and we're really excited to use recreation as a way to just enhance and make our communities healthier and happier and more sustainable. So thank you.
Do you have any questions, council members? No?
No questions?
Thank you, Renee. Oh, go
Come
ahead.
on, Jeffrey.
We got one.
You probably already said this, I just missed it relative to the Castle Lake being a road being plowed during winter, and I missed what you said about that.
So the county now has one rotary. I think it's called a rotary. The
Right.
big, like the big giant machines that can plow through the snow and we get the big dumps. And they're unable to just keep up after the storms to plow both the Everett and Castle. So my understanding is I think the county used to have two. So they were able to plow both of those roads faster, after the big storms. And then once the snow settles, then it's really hard to get up there. But there was also a part issue this year, and the part was on back order for a while. So it just meant that a lot of this winter, the road was closed.
Yeah.
And last winter, yeah. So,
Look any better for the future?
well, I mean, there's only one machine, and they always have issues. And so, I mean, it would be nice to have two machines because those are economic drivers for us. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, thank you, Renee. Thank you, Justy. Thank you. Best of luck with all that you're doing. We're going to move on to public comment now. 3 minutes. We'll start with those in the audience. We have a hand raised. Come on up. Person in the back. Name and city of residence.
City, huh? I'm in the city.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me come here. Anyway, so, well, my bag is the mini park, the piece of land north of the cinema, the inside movie theater there. On the other side of that ridiculous roll-off shipping container that you've got just north of the theater there, that's got to be removed. I left word with city public works manager to find out whether it's legal to have a shipping container. In many communities, you can't have a shipping container like that anywhere. Shasta County, you can't. City of Shasta Lake, you can't. I don't know what your regs are on the shipping containers, but there's one over by the movie theater. It's right in the way of the view in the parking area for that creek that comes down from behind Starbucks. When you issued all the permits for Starbucks, you should have addressed that problem with that land right there. It's just vacant land by the creek. Thankfully, the creek hasn't been paved or bulldozed. If you go behind the shipping container, to the north of the movie theater, you can see the beautiful creek riparian habitat over there. Lots of plants and lots of trees, small plants, medium-sized plants, big plants. It's a creek right there. And we don't have to unearth parking spaces to take advantage of that. It's already there. And when you made the permit for all that development there and all those improvements in favor of Starbucks, I've never been to Starbucks. I've been up here for going on 30 years, and I've never been to Starbucks ever, so I don't have much respect. They say, I know a homeless person that says they're real good for the homeless to let you hang there all day. Well, that's not my bag either. Anyway, so we got to recover that land between Starbucks and the movie theater. It's currently being used as a dumping place for not garbage, but tailings, I'll call it, which is dirt, not dirt, but gravel and crap that's there. That area's got to be cleaned off, sprinklers put in, grass installed, tables, drinking fountains. Where would the money come from? Well, for one thing, you got to condemn that property or work with the owner, which you should have done when you allowed Starbucks to come in there. You should have done that. No one's on page, it seems like, around here. They tried to put a bond issue for the park, and it required a 2/3 vote because they wouldn't structure it right, and they failed by 60 votes. Well, they're asking for the whole world on that bond issue, as anybody will tell you. They asked if you shoot for the stars, you wind up in the trees. But they wanted the whole world, and they failed. We need a mini park. Let's think about the TOT funds that are being misdirected. Just like the weight fee from the DMV, it's being misdirected to the general fund. And then they come to us again for more money. I'm sick of it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience like to speak? All right, come on up. Please state your name and city of residence.
Greg Dinger, Mount Shasta. On behalf of the entire community, we're pretty concerned about the loss of our ability to recycle materials at the Opportunity Center. There's a lengthy thread that's going on nextdoor.com, and I just wanted to ask the question, is there anything going to change? Is anything going to be done about this?
Yeah.
Bringing that up on future agenda items, so
Okay.
to be determined probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, in the audience, is there another person who'd like to speak on a non-agenda item? No. All right, so we'll close public comments section of the agenda and move on to council and staff comments. We'll start with city manager as usual.
Okay, first off, you know, a lot of you know that we've been working with the Library Expansion Committee looking at, or having Nolan Tam Architects come up with a conceptual plan for the reorganization and refurbishment of that space. That work continues. They're coming back, Nolan Tam is, on June 12th to meet again with the Library Expansion Committee to talk about you know, design elements and pricing of certain elements in that conceptual design, kind of a kit of parts, if you will, of what the Library Expansion Committee would like to see happen versus their budget. So look for that on the 13th. We had finance director interviews today, and I'd like to say I'm happy that we found a really qualified finance director and extended a conditional offer, you know, based on reference checks. You know, we should be able to get that person on board. So I'm also trying to get some of the items that are on the future agenda list that has gotten kind of long off that list. We've got the short-term rental ordinance planned to be coming back to meet noticing requirements. It will be on the 20, or the second meeting in June. I don't have the date in front of me. The second meeting in June.
24th.
24th, and we're waiting for comments back on the graffiti ordinance from our city attorney. And the stormwater ballot count will happen at the next meeting for the drainage impact fee. And I'll have the results of the Brownell Phase 1 ESA versus, you know, what was found out there for the structure versus the 2 parking lots, which we're looking at and currently have tied up for 6 months. And that is about it, unless you guys have questions.
Maybe I missed this, but do we know when the appraisals of the 2 lots is due in?
So yes, the appraisals are in for the commercial structure and the 2 lots. What we don't have is an estimate of what it will cost to clean up, and we need that, and it's going to be tough to estimate, and we need to subtract that from the commercial appraisal price and make that offer. From the discussions I've had and from the environmental report for the structure, I think that's going to be a wash. So it's not something that we want to purchase from the owner. But the 2 parking lots, there's one thing we need to do. We've had ground penetrating radar out there. They found no underground storage tanks. There is contamination on the site, but if we were to use it, you know, for the same use, the parking lot, and now we've got it documented of what the conditions are out there, that's something that we could purchase. The trick is, will the owner go for the appraised value minus the cost of the cleanup of that property? So, but that's something that we need to discuss at the next meeting. Okay.
Questions? Mr. Stearns? No. All right, Chief, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I was approached by one of the members of the Continuum of Care. They handle a lot of the homeless issues going on in the county, and it was brought to me that they would really like to have 1 or 2 council members from the city of Mount Shasta attend their next meeting and kind of get involved in there. So I told them I would bring that to you, and if that's something that you'd be interested in, it will be held in Wairika on June 5th at 1:30 in the afternoon at the Red Oak Room, which is in the behavioral health office located up by the college up behind the Black Bear there. She was going into a lot about the new housing elements and some of the grants and stuff that they had going on in Wairika, and said that it would be nice to have some Mount Shasta council members just attend and just see if they want to have their input put into the meeting. So if you guys want any further information, just shoot me an email. I'll give you all the details that I can on it.
I'd love to attend, but I'm going to be in trial.
Yeah. And then want to bring up something that, you know, we don't hear about a lot. So we have a MOU with the Sacramento Task Force for Internet Crimes Against Children. They were notified from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children of a potential child sexual abuse material being on a computers or being downloaded in the Mount Shasta area. So Sergeant Moore, when he came into the office for his duty schedule on May 9th, saw that he had an email from, we call it ICAC, out of Sacramento, of a potential child porn case. So he assigned the officer on duty, which is Nicholas Manfredonia, one of our new officers that just graduated from the academy. Officer Manfredonia was familiar with this person because he has dealt with them before on different issues, so he kind of knew the person. Was able to review the material, see that there was probable cause, get a search warrant issued, serve the search warrant, and have a suspect in custody within 6 hours, along with the seizure of several computers and cell phones. A brief check of the one of the computers showed over 200 images of child exploitation. The rest of the computers have been sent off to the ICAC. They have a forensic team down there that do the entire system for us. A couple days after this, Sergeant Moore received contact from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they want permission to use this case and present it to their national board of directors, because they were astonished at the speed of which this case went from notification to suspect in custody. So Sergeant Moore is working with them to get them all the information. That's going to be presented to the national board. This case just illustrates how a local officer, knowing the local people, gets things done quickly and professionally, to the point where it's impressing people who do this every day. So I just wanted council to be aware that that's what's going on.
To the chair?
Yes.
Sorry. 2 things. One, amazing. Can he come in at some point so we can offer our congratulations or whatever's appropriate?
Sure, I'll make him come in the next meeting. He has already received a letter of commendation for his work on this. And the nice thing about this is, you know, a lot of new officers, they don't know what they want to be as an officer. And this case and another case has really fired up Officer Manfredonia to want to seek specialized training in child abuse cases so that he can be the expert that everybody comes to.
Great. And then my second question was, is there going to be a formal press release released once?
Well, we've done a small press release as far as the information that we can release because of an ongoing investigation. I did want council to be aware that we were contacted by the National Center over this, which has been the first time that's ever happened to my knowledge in my 22 years here.
All right, Chief, thanks for sharing that story. Good work by all on that situation. Muriel? No? All right. Any council members would like to speak at this time? All right, so we're going to move on to committee updates. City manager, have anything to say about committee updates?
Excuse me, the DEAC met, and, they're still working on that Tree of Life statue and trying to get a company that will move that plinth. A lot of people are very concerned about cracking it and liability associated with it. And it's been 8 months and still haven't found anybody to get it to the right spot. Work is still planning on, a mountain bike day and some other events, and there's still some hurt feelings on part of the DEAC in terms of some of that money going to tie up one of the Brownell properties. But since we have been able to rent out the structure for 6 months, we've been able to almost make them whole. So, yeah, that's the gist of it. It was a good meeting. There's a lot of going over a lot of the work that's been in progress, but no new updates to report in terms of stuff that's been completed.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to consent agenda. City manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda or added hereto shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading thereof is hereby waived. A, approval of minutes, May 13th, 2024, regular meeting. We all attended that, correct? All right. B, approval of disbursements, accounts payable, May 9th, 2024, total gross payroll and taxes for period ending May 12th, 2024. C, committee minutes, beautification committee for April 18th, 2024. D, second reading and adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta amending Chapter 2.22.010 of Title II of the Mount Shasta Municipal Code to decrease council member compensation. E, renewal of lease with the Recreation and Parks District, Mount Shasta Recreation and Parks District. F, monthly investment and revenue report. Entertain a motion.
And to approve consent agenda items A through F by title only.
Second. And what is the ordinance number?
Okay, so, yeah. Let's reread number D. So that city ordinance number is CCO-24-05. Remotion.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through F by title only.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right. Wonderful. We'll move on to number 8, letter of intent to develop and purchase and develop the landing. So city manager will give us the background on this.
Yes. Excuse me. So I'm happy to announce that after quite a bit of negotiations, we've got a developer that is incorporated as Pinsino Holdings that we have language that we've agreed upon to cooperate on planning and the purchase of the 127-acre landing property. Essentially, this is, like it says, an agreement to cooperate. Putting this in place gives them a year to come up with a development plan for the site and 2 years to come up with the required funding to actually purchase the site piece by piece. With having this letter of intent in hand, it helps the developer in a couple of ways. One, it helps us help them chase down grants because it shows that we've entered into this partnership and that this is real. We intend to work with Pinsino Holdings. Two, it helps open the money spigot for them so they can do the planning that they need to open the financing. They're planning on purchasing a parcel, developing it, and using that as seed capital for the rest of the property, and that's how they're gonna, they want to move forward. And ultimately, in working with them, they know that the kind of development that happens out there needs to be the kind of development that the community wants to see, or it's not going to get approved. But there are a lot of parts that have gone into this. I see that Tanya Dowse from Siskiyou Economic Development Council is here, and they've been extremely helpful on a number of fronts in terms of seeking technical assistance grant from the EPA, which is going continuously or contiguously with this project, where they've had a team that the EPA has hired out to the site. We did along, the mayor and I and the team did a morning walk, and we talked about locations where potential public amenities could go, and they're drawing up a 10 to 20% conceptual to preliminary design plan for the site with these public elements in mind. And the idea is, with this technical assistance grant, that if you follow the work of this team, which includes engineers, landscape architects, and an economist, then you are much more likely to qualify for an EPA climate resiliency infrastructure grant that is between $10 and $20 million, which will help us get infrastructure into the locations where this public investment happens, and it can pay for this. So it's something that we'll be working with Pinsino Holdings, because it's something they're going to need, space, outdoor space, and public elements for circulation for this to pass muster with the community. So it's a way to get that stuff paid for, and potentially some additional infrastructure. So again, SEDC, Siskiyou Economic Development Council, is working with us to see if we can come up with seed money for a feasibility study to help get this first phase of development off the ground. And we've already got a cost estimate for the placement of sewer on the property that's been updated. The only thing we need to complete is an estimate for a lift station on the south end of the property, and making sure that that infrastructure is extended to that south end. But we're on our way. We are going to work with them on a study of what it would cost to pull water to the site. There's a 12-inch main on the outside edge of the property, and we need more specificity on where the developer would like to put certain elements before we're able to do that for them. And nothing has happened yet. This is the first step in a long road. But we also have additional interest from another developer if for some reason this doesn't pan out. So that's where we are.
All right. Questions for clarification purposes?
Todd, earlier this afternoon you indicated that there were a couple other things that you wanted to put in the LOI, the letter of intent. Letter of intent basically being exclusive negotiating agreement, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you talked about was the city working with the developer in terms of developing the property. I think that means going out and trying to get the grant funding.
Yes.
And then shortly before this meeting, our city attorney suggested adding some language that I gave you to the letter, which doesn't change the format or the intent of the letter.
Yes, and I have that language here, if I can read it, because it's I think it's John Kenny's handwriting. Do you want me to read that into the?
If you want, or he read it to me so I could read it in as well.
Okay.
If you can't read it.
The parties agree that this LOI sets forth a general agreement to negotiate that could result in the development of the property. This letter sets forth more specific terms or conditions of a development agreement. The The parties acknowledge that the details of any future agreement will develop when funding is determined. This letter is not intended, nor does it transfer any property rights. I think I've got that right.
Or something like that, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. I'll get clarity on it, but I know what needs to be added. So,
So that would be number 14?
yeah.
Okay, very good. Mr. Stearns, any other questions?
No, nothing else.
Ms. Collins?
City manager, there's in the bullets that relate to some of the headlines, this 24-month period that we're going to work exclusively with them is really kind of two 12-inch contingent 12-month segments.
Yes.
That first segment says we got 12 months to come up with a development plan and a purchase agreement.
Yep.
Past that, what's the next 12 months for?
So the first 12 months is again, to come up with a conceptual development plan for the site. And the next is, the first phase is for them to open the financing spigot for that first parcel, get that developed, and then they need to determine where they're going to get the additional capital from to develop the additional parcels. So part of this is not only opening the spigots for the developers, but it's also doing the lot splits required for the developer. So as they, we part off parts of the landing, and to be clear, they want the entire landing. It's part of that time is to do those lot splits and then seek, the appropriate funding for each one of those parcels.
Okay. One more question, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, just one more. Is it too soon to talk about the general proclivity of this developer, like what they kind of do?
Yes, it's not too soon. They floated a number of different thought bubbles with a couple things they would like to do, and Jeff Mitchum, the planning director, and I have been trying to steer them away from some elements just because it's not particularly the highest and best use, but that's going to be a work in progress, but they seem willing to work with us. Again, the first phase, they're talking to Marriott and Hyatt for the development of a hotel that will then fund additional projects. They've talked about park space. They have asked that we do some research on the number of households that are of, the median income for the area, so workforce housing, the 80 to 120% median family income, the missing middle, which is really hard to finance. And they plan to, use that information of who, the teachers and nurses and, city employees that are likely to pre-qualify for these workforce houses, and if they can, actually pre-qualify some of them, so they can plan out how many of these units and then figure out the mix of affordable and a market rate that will help fund that missing middle on site. They've talked about this is one of the things we've tried to steer them away from, is a high-end RV park, for people that want to do long-term stays. And, there have been a couple other things floated, like an indoor amphitheater to catch some of the folks, the traffic between San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and Point South that may be traveling along that I-5, which is a river of cash, pulling them off, and people that may want to put on a show. We may be able to pull the Ashland International Film Festival to this side of the mountain, those kind of things. Because it seems like there are a lot of people that would be willing to stop here if there was a venue, including potentially some bands that they're trying out new material, and if they bombed, this is a good place to do it. But that kind of thing. So, yeah. So those are the big things, but again, they're really open to, well, what's going to make the most sense for the community, so they're willing to zig and zag.
Thank you. Questions? All right, we'll move on to public comment regarding this item. Here in the audience, okay, we have 2 hands up. We'll start with Renee.
I just wanted to make a comment. I live in the neighborhood behind the old Piedmont restaurant, and one of the big concerns for me in the development of the Roseburg property is that street going into our neighborhood, Mountain View, I think it's called. We need a 4-way stop there. If we're trying to move people across the boulevard, particularly as we think about recreation element on the east side Roseburg, if there are any recreation elements or parks on the west side of Mount Shasta Boulevard, if people are crossing that street, we need a 4-way stop. It's not particularly safe.
So in any development plan, you've got to do an extensive traffic study. And what they do is look at the uses. There is, this gets a little bit wonky. There's a book called AASHTO, American Association of State and Highway Transportation Officials. And you can look in there, and based on the use, they can tell you how many trips you're going to generate in a day. And they use that information, this is what the developer proposes, this is how many rooms they plan on, maybe some light commercial, what will that generate? And they need to figure out how much traffic is coming from that site. And based on that traffic analysis, they're going to come up with a traffic plan on how you're going to manage all the traffic that's coming to and from that site, and also to and from that site. And also, one of the things that we need to do working with the developer is ensuring that the kind of uses that go in there don't trigger what's called an interchange area management plan. And that's the point when you get so many vehicles coming and going from not only the city of Mount Shasta, but from that development site, that the developer, the state transportation agency can tell us, if you go ahead with this plan, we're going to shut down this on and off ramp here. So we need to stay below that threshold, because there's no developer that's going to pay to rebuild an interchange for the sake of their development. So it's foremost in the minds of the 2 developers I've been talking to ensure that the trips that are produced are under a certain cap. And we've already reached out to Caltrans and put them on notice. In fact, we invited them up to the EPA's technical assistant workshop that entire day. They weren't able to make it, but they're aware of it, and they're going to be involved in the process.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
With the south end of town is developing more. It's changing.
Yeah.
Traffic speeds coming off of Highway 89 are definitely something to consider. And I also just want to say, again, from my perspective of living across the street, I walk on the Roseburg property. I'm over there 2 or 3 times a week. A lot of our neighbors are too, and I really hope that there remains, some ability to have walking paths and a park element as you guys work on the development. So those are the 2 big pieces on my mind.
I mean, if they don't capitalize on the public open space aspect and the Pioneer Trailhead across the street, they'd be foolish. And we've talked about this. Public open space and circulation is going to be a big moneymaker for them, and they understand that. It's an externality that nets real dollars.
Absolutely. And that south end trailhead is going to be big. The use is going to be big. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Come on up, Justy.
Actually, Renee and I met with Logan Simpson. Yes, so we were part of a meeting where we were able to provide feedback about the development of the Roseburg property. And I just want to throw this out, share my vision and some of my concerns about that property that I hope this developer is taking into consideration. And I guess the inquiry that I'm throwing out there is how can that property be developed in such a way that it enhances the existing businesses in Mount Shasta and not necessarily take away from those businesses? Excuse me. the performing arts element I've thought about, and I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think it's something that we're missing because people would love to come here and see a great show and then stay somewhere or camp out and then be able to take advantage of all the recreation opportunities here. So music and recreation, or arts and recreation, I think really would support the community beautifully. And then housing, of course, but like sort of a co-housing style where there's gardens and playgrounds for children, and then a park style, even like mini stages. I wish I could buy the property and I could develop it my own. I have so many ideas. But I would love to see at the Roseburg property an interpretive center, and we could move the Sisson Museum and the Chamber of Commerce and all of these elements that actually will attract tourists and visitors, and then guide them to effectively utilize our area. And then from the landing, they go into town and support all of our local businesses. So they can go to the landing, they can live there, they can see music, they can gather information about the area, hop on a beautiful bike trail from the landing into Mount Shasta, separate bike trail. It's part of the plan, the ATP plan. And then ride, maybe they could get a rickshaw ride. Maybe someone could start a rickshaw business and they could get a rickshaw ride from the landing into town and support the local businesses. So anyway, that's how I'm thinking about it, is how does that support the existing local economy and the health of our community? Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Justin. All right, in the audience, anybody else? All right, name and city.
Wendy Warnick, and I'm a resident of the city of Mount Shasta. In an earlier meeting, there was a question posed as to whether there would be a non-refundable deposit by the developer for tying the property up for a year or two. Would you clarify the position of that at this time?
So I've done tax increment finance development up in Portland, and in a Class A environment where you've got a number of people that are clamoring for a site, you definitely charge a developer to tie up that site for a certain period of time while they, quote unquote, kick the tires. Very occasionally in a Class B office space environment that happens, but most of the time they forgo that. We have a site here that has been undeveloped for 25 years, and it's never been tied up in a development agreement. And, frankly, most people won't touch it because there is no infrastructure out there, and they won't do anything unless the city will put in that infrastructure for them. So in this case, it doesn't make sense to take a deposit for that work because the demand isn't there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else from the audience? Okay, anyone online?
Yes, we have one hand raised, and our first speaker will be Raven.
All right, Raven, you know the drill.
Hi.
Go ahead.
I do. Raven from Mount Shasta. I got stuck in the ethers here and I didn't get to do a public comment. So if you bear with me for 10 seconds, I'd really like to see a great upscale recycling plan for Mount Shasta, but also I'd like to hear about the closed session with One Shasta. Usually you guys come back from the closed session and give a brief update, and I did not hear that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Raven. Do you want to comment at this, well,
Yeah.
we'll finish the LOI element, and maybe you can comment on that.
Do you want to finish the landing piece or talk about the
Yeah, but now we're jumping, it's not an agenda item, it's,
but
it should have been talked about.
yeah, I can sum this up pretty quickly.
All right.
The reason we met in closed session is, as Raven, as you know, and the audience members that are frequently watching our meetings, the city's been negotiating with One Shasta LLC to see if we're able to have them gift the a high point on their property for a utility easement and the location of a tank, and also for their well. And we need that. We need the water from that well to balance out the system, the water system in the city of Mount Shasta. And essentially, we've come to an agreement in principle that we don't, we don't want to jeopardize it at this moment, but it's a favorable agreement for the city, and we just wanted to make sure that council's all on the same page before we spend the attorney dollars to get this in place so we can bring a draft agreement for discussion to council.
All right, so back to the LOI. We have no other hands raised. All right, so we'll close public comment on the LOI item and bring it back to council for further discussion and direction to city manager. Go ahead, Tim.
All right, so the letter of intent is basically, the intent there is to enter into exclusive negotiating period for a year, hopefully come up with an agreement between the city and the developer of how the property should be developed for the benefit of the entire city, including the downtown, because we did make an agreement with the city council made an agreement with the city years ago that when the landing gets developed, it would be developed in such a way that it would not compete with the downtown, but would complement the downtown. And so what we have before us is basically a draft LOI, which I understand there will be some other language put in, but it's not going to really change the intent of entering into a exclusive one-year period. So with that understanding, I would be in support of it, recognizing that in approving going forward with an LOI, a letter of intent, we are not committing the property. We're not encumbering the property to a developer. We are not selling the property to a developer at this point. We are not entering in any sale terms. It is simply, let's work together for the next year, 12 months, and see what we can come up with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I would be supportive of that.
Your thoughts, Mr. Collins?
Exactly the same. It's a relatively straightforward letter of intent with no details. So yeah, I'm done in support of it.
Council members, am I right?
In support. This is a long time coming. I feel excited, so hopefully this will lead to something very cool for us.
And John, you feel the same way? Okay, and so the procedure, logistically, this is a draft, and so what would be the next step? I'm in favor of this, just for the record.
You would approve the letter of intent with amended as requested.
Are you going to bring it back to council? We have to,
This will be it. This will get the ball rolling.
All right,
with them. And
all right, so can we get a motion to approve it?
I move that we authorize the city manager to move forward with the letter of intent with amendments to it consistent with what you presented in the draft this evening.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And aye. Any opposed? And we move on to number 9. So this is a discussion about putting a half-cent sales tax increase on the ballot, the November ballot, and city manager will introduce the item.
so I wasn't at the last council meeting. My understanding was this was a request for a two-parter, the idea that, and correct me if I'm wrong, to suggest putting out a referendum on whether the city will continue with emergency services as we know them, or to move towards county services as a potential way to save money. And the second part connected to this is the idea of floating a half-cent sales tax that would need to be, all required information would need to be in with the election clerk in early August to get onto the November ballot. And I have, I've got my comments on that, but, I'll let you guys do your thing.
So we're clarifying questions right now, but does anyone? Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I don't recall council talking about, and maybe I'm wrong, but, or maybe my mind is short, but I don't recall the council talking about
A non-binding resolution where to
entering
give the people.
into any sort of contract with the sheriff's department, getting rid of our.
No,
police
it would be a non-binding vote to get the opinion of the electorate as to whether they're interested in the status quo, A, or B, potentially saving money by moving to contracting the sheriff and so forth, and whether we wanted to put that to the people. So here it is. And then a second one that would go on the ballot would be a half-cent sales tax. I think A in that case would pass by about 80% or better. I've never really sensed much interest at all in contracting the sheriff.
I haven't heard anyone in Mount Shasta say they would.
Well, then it
like
has to be
switch over
paid
the sheriff's
for,
department.
and so that's sort of a marketing lead-in to the very binding half-cent sales tax request.
I'd like to hear what the city manager mentioned that he has some thoughts on it. Perhaps we ought to hear his thoughts.
Well, obviously, I work for council. I have a couple concerns in that floating the potential of moving services to the county and foregoing our local services. I'm not sure that it would save money, and B, the idea of floating a referendum now is, to me, concerning for two reasons. One is that we haven't read the drainage impact fee that.
But now you're talking about the actual half-cent sales tax?
Yeah, and those ballots will be counted at the next meeting. I'm concerned there'll be fee fatigue. Typically, in larger jurisdictions, there's a year lead time before you float a sales tax measure, and it may not be done that way here, right? But typically, and again, a little bit larger cities, they hire a statistic and a statistical research firm to do focus group interviews with businesses and members of the public to determine, how to word the tax measure so we're getting the right verbiage to make it most likely that one of these will pass. And you need that lead time to build the support in the community. And I understand the need for the tax, but I'm just not sure we've got enough of a runway to get there before November. But whatever council decides, we'll do.
Any more clarifying questions before we go to public comment?
I also am not remembering this, but I tend to get worked up in a moment and then blood pressure cuts off circulation to my brain, so I could also be forgetting. Am I reading this correctly that it's either we need to increase revenue in order to sustain our public safety or help sustain it, or venture out to other options like the county? Am I reading that right?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, public comments on this. Okay, Renee.
Don't invite me back. I would just say that I was on the Park and Recreation District Board when we tried twice with the parcel tax, and I would agree. You got to do a lot of work in the community before you bring something forward like that, and from now until November is probably not enough time. yeah, it's worth it to spend the time if you find that you're really committed to it. We tried and failed twice. I wish you better luck.
Anyone else? Okay, Jesse.
Who proposed the tax?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's budget related. Yeah. We're running deficits. Okay, we're going to close public comment on this and bring it back to council for further discussion. I'd like to start off by just asking Muriel what her thoughts are on a need for increased revenue.
I think Mayor and Council, I think I've been very clear about my position of increasing sales tax. It's something I have been saying for quite some time, and I've also said and basically mirrored the exact discussion that City Manager Juhas just spoke about in hiring an agency to market that and have enough lead time to make it work. I've been very clear in the past, my position that a sales tax initiative is something that absolutely needs to be done if we want to keep services at the level that they are. I know that Councilmember Collings is interested in spreading the base, and which makes all kinds of sense, except that to do that, that's a much longer phased-in approach to generating revenue than this is, in my opinion, something that has been needed to be done for quite some time.
So let me ask Mary one more question. When was the last time we had a sales tax increase, excluding the library?
Never to my knowledge, because all it is it's
the basic taxes.
It's just the basic, yes. Whereas if you did some research and actually looked on the tax and fee website, it has the additional taxes that are generated throughout the state of California, and you'd be surprised at the number of cities and counties throughout the state that are charging, their tax rates are in the 9 and 10% range, and approaching 10.5% in many cases. So that's what other places have done. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's to the extent that we would need to raise taxes to that amount here, but I have felt for a very long time that this is something that the city needs to do.
Thank you for your comments, Muriel. Ms. Stearns.
Yeah, I'll address both of those parts. In terms of the sheriff versus local policing, I think I don't see any sense really in putting that to a vote of the public. I think we have a good sense of that. And anybody who knows anyone who's lived in Dunsmuir also has a good sense of that. Local policing is much more favorable.
I think it's a foregone, accepted conclusion in the parts of most people that service quality would go substantially down.
Moving to the second issue, I agree with the finance director, and I also agree with the city manager. Raising the tax makes sense and is important for the welfare, the future of the city. Getting it done, passing it successfully will not be easy. It makes it extremely hard to do it this November. We don't really have time to do it this November. When I have gone to League of Cities training on this, I also have heard it takes a good year. You hire the experts to run this education effort, and it is not an easy thing to do. Especially, it would not be easy if following on very short order the stormwater tax increase.
It's a fee.
To us, it's a user fee. To many people who live in this community,
Get our
it's
terminology right.
it's a tax increase. And so I think it's a good plan for a future election, not in November of 2024.
So by that, I'll let you talk in a second, okay? Yeah. So by that logic, we have November major election. 25 really doesn't have any general elections that would make it cheap. We'd have to have a special election. I actually would want to steer away from that. And then 26 has a June primary, because it's a non-presidential year for California. That would be the earliest time to do this, and that's 2 years away. Tax wouldn't start until January of 27, so the benefits of this would be substantially in the future. And so instead of making this a November ballot issue, we could start talking about making it a June of 26 ballot measure. And that has several people, that would be in line with what several people have said already. So we could do that now, I guess, in a second, but go ahead, Shasta.
I agree with all of that. I would also like to add, maybe pose a question, and maybe this is done during the feasibility study, if that's what it's called. Is 0.5% enough? Is that going to cover what our future needs are? Should we look at the differences between 0.5% and a full % increase? Since we've never done this before, it might be advantageous for us to look at multiple options.
Mm-hmm. Good comment.
All right, so go ahead, yeah.
I need more information.
Yeah.
I need to know the last time the percentage was increased.
The answer is never.
What?
It's never. So the base rate for any city is 7.5, right? Yeah.
7.5?
It won't be any lower than that anywhere. Yeah. So that's ours minus the library.
Okay. I would need to know all of the cities around here that are roughly our size, what their rates are, and some professional group to come back with what's technically referred to as a price elasticity analysis of increasing tax rates a quarter, a half, 3/4, and 1%. Because you can do the math, okay, if we raise it 0.5 cent relative to current sales rates, we should get X amount of money more. And I would argue, and I suspect it's the truth, that no, you won't. It's just like the restaurant that says, hey, we're not making enough money, we're gonna raise our prices. And and because we know how many people come in, we'll make this much more money and that'll work for us. Except people are like everybody who's got a checkbook. When things get too expensive, some people cut back. And I have no idea what that is relative to a city model and the sales tax impact on how elastic that is, meaning how much of that easily calculable increase relative to current sales would translate to the 0.5 cent, 3/4 cent increase. How much would we actually get? And I would like, I'm no pro at that, but I know somebody I would need somebody to say, hey, this is what you're going to get out of this. And then obviously, as previously commented, the time to go sell this in, because this, anytime you want to dig into somebody else's pockets or our own citizenry's pockets, you're going to have some good reasons why. And that's all. Thanks.
All right, so does anyone want to make a motion to start the process of wherein we study to possibly put a ballot measure in the June 26th election?
I would like to make a motion to direct staff to bring back to council options, perhaps a study with varying degrees of levels of increase to be potentially put on the June 26th ballot.
Second.
And when you say that, are you talking about preliminary recommendations from staff based upon whatever research report they do?
Yes.
That's like a future agenda item, Todd, so there you go. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. All right. Let's move on to outside meetings. Yes, no one's on the list, but I was at the CCERTA. Is that the correct abbreviation? So, yeah, this was a group hired by the EPA to come down and gather information and talk to all the not all, but many stakeholders regarding mainly parts of my takeaway was that the issue was parts of the landing, not the whole landing. There are two main sections of the landing that are not developable for residential use, and that's the whole north section where the pond, surrounding the pond and the pond itself. The pond is fairly dry. It's sort of grown over area now. And then a section more towards the middle that's fairly large that the cleanup group said can only be commercial or park. And so the CCERTA people will come back in July and put forth, would you call it a plan or what would you call what they're going to present to us?
A conceptual plan based on the input that we've received up to now on the infrastructure, the design of parks, circulation, and open space, and the types of green infrastructure that we should propose that makes us more saleable to the EPA for that climate resiliency grant. So
my thought after going through that day with all those people and then thinking about it for a while was I kind of like the north end being developed into something along the lines of what Justy was talking about, moving the Sisson Museum over there, and maybe some rec district facilities being moved there, and then of course making that area, generally speaking, a really good park with a pond and so forth. So we'll see what happens. It was definitely an edifying experience. There's a lot more ruins on the property than I thought there were, and there's some very interesting contours to the land, some big dips and so forth. And then Tom Hesseldins has some really great ideas that hopefully will be picked up by this group and be moved forward. And that's along the lines of trails and water features and so forth. So we'll see, and so stay tuned on that. Moving on to future agenda items.
To the chair.
Did you?
I have a couple outside meetings to report.
Oh, okay, you do.
I do, yeah. One was city manager and I went to the Northern California Sacramento District, Cal Cities.
Division managers, yep.
Where we had lunch and then heard a presentation on affordable housing and got to mingle with other members. That was last week, I believe. And council members Colleen, Stackfleth, and I, and Todd met with the EIFD meeting. We had our first official,
The public financing
Finance
authority.
Committee with Joe from Cosmot, and we've gotten that started, so hopefully that will continue and have momentum.
Yeah, how could I forget that? All right, future agenda items. Does anyone want to add one? I think you did, right? Yeah.
Yes, what our public commenter was discussing, and I've just been hearing rumblings of this, I'm not sure if I have my facts correct, but our current recycling center is no longer accepting recycling without a CRV, without the,
That's correct.
yeah.
That's Siskiyou Opportunity Center.
Siskiyou Opportunity Center, so that leaves out cardboards, a lot of plastics, paper, et cetera. So I would love to put on the agenda for the staff to verify that that's happening, what their plans are, if this is just a temporary thing, make sure we have our facts straight, and if we have a plan B for what we're going to do with recycling.
To the chair.
Go ahead.
I was just at the recycling center today doing recycling, and they filled me in on that. The company out of Reading they used to take the recycling, building had damage. They tried to jerry-rig it back together. County came in and shut them down. They're not even sure they're going to even reopen. They are using a new company called NorCal Recycling, and NorCal Recycling is the one saying everything has to be CRV. They even took a shipment of a semi-shipment of plastics from the recycling center, realized it was mixed with non-CRV, and have then returned all the plastic to be sorted out. So, because it was all sitting right there, all the bundles, an entire semi-load of plastics to be resorted to take everything out. So as far as whether or not they're going to change anything, it depends on the new company that they're working with, or I forget the name of the company out of Reading that they were working with. They're not even sure they're going to be up and running again. So this could be, and part of it is that apparently they're not going to be taking blue bags anymore as well. So.
You mean they're not, the Siskiyou Opportunity Center will not be taking the blue
They'll
bags
not be
from
taking
Waste
blue
Management
bags, yeah.
that picks up.
Yeah. Blue bags are looking like.
Okay, so the agenda item is to analyze the situation and come up with ideas that could be as simple as whether Wairika Transfer will accept our stuff going up there.
Because they were trying to work out a
because
deal
they're
still
a pretty
with them
serious
as well.
recycler.
So, and on top of it, you haven't been able to do cardboard recycling for almost 4 years now.
But Wairika Transfer does.
Just not down here, though.
Yeah.
There's nobody down here
Yeah,
doing it.
no.
Is the problem.
If I may,
Go ahead.
our finance director has been coordinating with the county for, I think, a number of years in terms of recycling issues. I don't know if you have any additional information for us.
I really don't. I have reached out to the county, and perhaps they're making some changes now. But my thought, and this is just my opinion, is that we have a transfer station that is highly underutilized and is the place where the development for Weed, Mount Shasta, McLeod, and Dunsmuir to have a recycling center, a green waste center, and any of those other sorts of things that incidentally the state of California is requiring at some point. Now, I have reached out to each of our supervisors several times, and all I've heard from any of them is crickets. So that's what's happening. I do know that the market for recycling, there is none. And part of the problem is that what people would like to do and like to recycle, the folks that are receiving that would like to be able to get it someplace where they at least break even. And that hasn't happened. So it's not just us, it's the whole North State, basically. There's the rural areas. While we've had extended the time for the deadlines that have been mandated by the state of California to do particular types of recycling. In the rural areas, we aren't subject to that. At this point, doesn't mean that there isn't a deadline, because there is. And in my opinion, and again, it's my opinion, that the county of Siskiyou had their heads in the sand for a very long time.
All right, so it'll stand as an agenda item. See what you can come up with, I guess. Anybody else? I just have one, which may not be an actual agenda item. I've talked to Todd about it here in a second. You have any, John?
I just have a question. Just what can the city do as far as just like, how do we make anybody take anything? I mean, I realize the purpose of the agenda item, but do we got any teeth to it? I mean, if private business isn't going to take anything, how do we make them?
Well, that's what staff could come back with. It's hopeless, so therefore just throw your trash away, I guess.
No, I'm not. I just don't know what teeth we have in that. So.
No, it's more of a research and report.
In terms of the agenda item, I would suggest that the agenda item be scheduled while Muriel is still here, and that we have the benefit of her knowledge and background regarding the recycling and solid waste as well.
And that's fine. I do have a meeting with the folks that are doing our garbage pickup next week. I have a meeting with
Wastewater management?
Yes, and that'll be one of the discussion items, because they have been picking up the blue bags and taking them to their own facility rather than Siskiyou Opportunity Center taking care of those blue bags. So they're interested in making things happen as well. So they're going to be a great partner in helping figure out what needs to be done, because it's what they do. That's all they do. So having buy-in with them, and perhaps some of the things that they've gone through in some of the other areas across the country may be a good partnership to have, to see if we can get some things done.
All right, so
Sorry, it may behoove us also to invite our district representative at Valenzuela to the agenda meeting if and when it happens, so he can be part of the solution.
All right, so Todd, looking at the library plan, looks like it's going to be used for more than just library purposes. And I talked to you before about you talking to John Kennedy to see if we needed to bring up a ballot measure to basically change the code regarding the use of the tax funds to be broader than just library purposes. And so it's not an agenda item unless you say it needs to be, but have you followed up on that, or you still need some more time? So folks, if you ever get around to reading the code regarding the sales tax increase, it was very strict and limiting with respect to what it could be used for, and it's library oriented, and especially operating the library. And it does have some verbiage in there about building or expanding it, but it's very library focused. The plan, even the LTAC and the Friends of the Library people are in favor of expanding it into a more of a community center type of facility, meaning that there would be non-library activities going on, arts and crafts, meetings of groups, like, boys and girls club type stuff, and city council meetings. So from a technical standpoint, do we need to expand the verbiage or amend that code to say that this quarter-cent sales tax can be used for more than library purposes? The answer might be, don't worry about it.
We might have to have city attorney do an analysis or an opinion on the ordinance, because for the past quarter century, when we have talked about expanding the library, we have, and when I say we representatives of the city council, friends of the library, have envisioned the library expansion to include the ability to have city council meetings there, planning commission meetings there, and community activities there.
And that's coming to fruition, actually. So the question is whether we have to expand or amend that code regarding that tax, because technically it's important to do that. And in my experience with John is that he does have detailed knowledge of that type of thing, and he has pretty strong opinions on it too. So taxes going to being used for the purpose that they were intended to be used for. So yeah, I mean, we've got till August 6th, right? So
yeah, I think before we put anything on the agenda, perhaps we can just.
Oh, no, this is not an agenda item.
Okay.
It was a potential agenda item. Todd's going to look at it first. He's going to kind of put it on the agenda. Yeah. Yeah, he has to talk to the city attorney. Okay. I wanted to do that one in public. We've talked about it in private. Okay. So if there's no objection to ending the meeting, I'm going to do that now. Meeting is adjourned at 7:04.